Hello and welcome to this episode of Kaleidoscope, the podcast. My guest today is Haley Heath. Haley worked for many years in IT and has recently, well, in the last 5 years, become qualified as a coach. You coached before in your IT role, but you're now a qualified coach. And you've been doing it part-time, but you're actually stepping out into doing it full time very, very soon. So I'm very excited. As always, I don't know which story or in your life of change that you're going to tell, but Kaleidoscope, the podcast, is all about change and transformation. So the four questions are: what was your life like before the change? What was your life like during the change? What was your life like after the change? And what does the future hold? Not that any of us have a crystal ball, but we kind of know what we're doing in the next month or two. We hope we know. Hilly, thank you so much for joining us, and I will pass it over to you to answer those questions.
Thank you for having me. Okay, so what happened before the change for me was I'd been working in corporate IT, mixture of industries for about 24 years. And I came to the realization that it wasn't for me. And it took a long time to get to that realization. I'd always been really driven, really ambitious. And I really wanted to make that mystical C level, so director level within an organization in IT. And it was something I was really passionate about for a long time, striving to get there. It's a male-dominated environment. There's lots of challenges, especially for at the time I was quite young. And so I was young and female in a male-dominated environment. And that came with a whole set of challenges that I hadn't really thought about when I went into the world of IT as a youngster. And during that time, I really felt like I had to really prove myself. I had to really work exceptionally hard to achieve some of the things that were kind of being given to my peers around me. It was a very challenging time for me, really, to process that. But I managed it. I eventually got to that sea level, and once I'd made it there, and it took nearly 19 years for that to happen, I got there. I did well for a couple of years, but I hated it. I really didn't enjoy it, and not because the role was particularly difficult for me, but just because of the politics and the challenges that you face as a female, a young female in a senior environment. And it just drained the life out of me. And as a result, I ended up deciding to move on from that, and give myself a little bit of space to kind of try something new. And I sought out a coach for myself. And the whole experience just completely changed my life. Um, it wasn't just professional coaching, it kind of covered the personal side as well. And there had been things that I hadn't even realized had been holding me back. So lots of limiting beliefs, and I'm sure the people listening are used to hearing about those. But lots of limiting beliefs that were holding me back around not being capable in that environment, and just generally a feeling of not being good enough, which again is a pretty common theme for a lot of people. And I always felt that I never really measured up to others. It was always an underlying thing for me in the background. And then I started seeing this coach. We got to the bottom of some of my limiting beliefs, and I learn new ones every day. It's an ongoing process. And as a coach, you see that in your clients as well. So they say you attract clients who have been through similar things to yourself, which is absolutely true. And it's an experience that I have every day. But I learned about myself, became really self-aware, and started to just unpick everything that had happened to me over the last 20 years, which was a bit of a roller coaster, I won't lie. And I guess I'd felt like I had been on autopilot for a really long time, just doing the day to day on the outside. Everything looked great. Anybody looking into, my life and what I was doing would think it was amazing. because you just go through the motions every day to work, delivering, doing what you can. I had a really good kind of personal life, hobbies, a husband, but the whole process got me reflecting on everything. And I had realized that I'd been masking for a really long time. Um, and I also wasn't really enjoying my life. So the joy level in my day to day was very low. And also the joy level outside of that was low, because I was just putting everything I could into work and the balance wasn't there. So as a result, I ended up really looking into it and realizing that actually it was me, me who had those limiting beliefs, those challenges, and that I needed to kind of move on for myself and find things that brought me joy. I knew the bits of my day-to-day role that had brought me joy. So seeing other people develop, leading a team, helping them deliver things, and helping them grow as individuals and have realizations of their own. So those were the bits that kind of lit me up. I also ended up taking this was really difficult, a really hard look at my relationships in my life in a personal sense. And I decided that until I could be in a position where I really understood myself, that I was in a marriage that, on the whole had been really good, but again, wasn't something that I felt I wanted to continue. So I also left my husband during that time. So lots of big changes. And we sat down and talked about it and decided that was the right thing for me at the time. And he was very supportive, considering what was going on. Um, and yeah, just lots of changes. I moved house in COVID, as well, which was a challenge. So I moved house in COVID and ended up just following a completely different path. I got made redundant from the role that I had, and that was only a few months after moving out on my own, which is really the first time I'd lived on my own in my whole life. So a very stressful time for me, really. But it all came together. It gave me a real kick up the bottom to go ahead and create my own business. So I created my business, Hayley Heath Coaching and Consulting. And I kind of went into IT consulting. So that's what I've been doing for the last 5 years, alongside my coaching business, which sits within that. And it's just been amazing. I've learned so much about myself. Um, and off the back of such, I guess, what I felt was a real big personal loss for the life that I had, um, I've managed to turn it around and it's really working for me. And I feel so much more joyful in my day to day. When I see the clients that I work with and I see them have big transformations, it's just amazing to watch. It really lights me up. Um, and yeah, but during the change, I mean, it was really challenging for me, lots of emotions going on, finally starting to feel my feelings, which was a new experience for me. And I know that other people have those same challenges. We all bottle things up. Um, and yeah, it was a really deep transformation for me. And it also took me down a holistic path too. So I'd always been quite a logical, rational person working in IT and having that kind of mind. And as soon as this kind of self-awareness piece crept in, I started to really investigate and become really curious about, holistic therapies, holistic practices, how I can help support myself, my body as well. That's been another kind of lifelong challenge, is just maintaining my fitness. And I've always been quite overweight since being a teenager, and that's held me back quite a lot, in my own mind. It stopped me from moving forward on a lot of things. Um, But yeah, when the change happened, it felt quite significant, and it felt like everything around me, all the different parts of my life just came almost crashing down. But I think that was a good thing. It was it's brought me to where I am. Um, and yeah, just the personal loss of that was quite big. Um, After the change, I have been doing IT consultancy, so I've been running my own business. I did my first public speaking event at the beginning of last year, which was very scary. And it was at a brand new event. It was the National Coaching Awards that are run by PASEDA360. And there were about 140, 150 people in there. And whilst I'd spoken a lot in front of teams of people as part of my normal IT job, I had never spoken about something that made me feel so vulnerable. And I did a talk about not being enough, the feeling of not being enough, and that it's okay to be vulnerable and put yourself out there. And that in our environment, when you're coaching others, the best thing you can do is be human, because who wants to work with somebody who's perfect? I know I certainly don't. And that was just a real eye opener for me. And I've always struggled with confidence, especially around being on stage and in front of big groups of people. And having that experience and getting the feedback that I had at that conference was just amazing. It was a real boost. Um, I didn't really know how to accept a compliment. I learned that about myself. So yeah, that was an experience where people are talking about what they'd heard me speak about on stage, and really the amount of people that could relate to, being vulnerable and not masking all the time and getting through the day and not really enjoying it. It just really opened my eyes to the amount of people out there that need that support, or just need a safe, trusted ear to speak to. And it kind of lit a fire under me, really, to really strive to look to transition into full-time coaching. Um, and like I say, it kind of took me down a completely different path. I started looking into things like meditation, things that I could do to help myself in terms of managing my stress levels, because that's always been quite a significant thing for me too. And I learned how to run cacao ceremonies. I've become a meditation practitioner, and mindfulness practitioner. I've learned aromatherapy. So looking at how scent can help the mind and how it can relax the body and help the nervous system. There's so many different modalities that I've gone on to learn that ultimately will support my coaching clients. But it's just been an incredible transition so far. And I'm not there yet. I'm still training. I'm probably a lifelong learner. I love learning. I've always got, a couple of courses on the go, 5 or 6 books on the go all at once, and a million podcasts. And yeah, I'm always trying to learn new things. And that's just my personality. I think I'll forever be a collector of learning. But yeah, that's really the next steps for me really are just about going into full-time coaching. So I've recently started building a online course, and that's leading to other opportunities and things coming up for me. My IT consulting is coming to a natural close at the end of March. So in my mind, I've got the end of March as a transition. So I'm going to see how that goes. Um, and yeah, this year I actually went back to the National Coaching Awards and I got an award, which was just an incredible experience.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So yeah, I won the Rising Star of the Year award for coaching. It was a pretty in-depth submission that we had to do, and there were videos and all sorts of things that you had to submit. And again, that little imposter syndrome piece popped in for me. Who am I to be doing this? And every time I experience something new, it makes me better able to relate to my clients.
Yeah.
And these are just themes that come up, not just for myself, but for a lot of the people that I work with as well. Um, but yeah, seeing their transformations is just incredible. And I can't wait to see more of those.
Brilliant. Thank you very much indeed. So you might have noticed, I forgot to tell you at the beginning, I take a few notes.
No
So that's why my
problem.
head was down at times. So I take a few wee notes about what you're saying because I don't like to interrupt because I don't want to put you off what you're saying. Um, Vulnerability. I'm a big Brené Brown fan. Love
Yeah,
Brené Brown. And it is vulnerability is a superpower. And when you can learn to embrace your vulnerability and allow yourself to be vulnerable, my goodness, the doors that can open for you are phenomenal. But it is
yeah,
not easy work. It is it's not easy work. Um, the enough thing, yeah. I mean, I don't think there's anybody I've worked with ever that hasn't been the crux of the problem in some way, shape, or form.
yeah,
Might be dressed up differently. It might they might talk about it differently, but at the bottom, when you really get down to it, that's normally the crux of the problem for certainly the vast majority of the people that I would work with is the not enough.
yeah.
Compliments, learning to take a compliment, huge. And I correct people all the time, and they you can see them almost looking at me as if to say, "Would you stop it?" Do you know that whole "I love your top"? Oh yeah, this wee thing I got that next. You know the one down the road, the one the cheapy one, the sale. I got it in that. And like, could you not just say thank you? But it is we are learned to be um have humility, but
Yeah,
we take it too far. We take it to the point where it's actually detrimental to us. Instead of just going thank you, and for some people, I say, but that's too short. I feel like I have to say something. And it's like, okay, so you say, thank you. I like it too. And
yeah,
that kind of then finishes the sentence. You think you've said enough then. Um, Limiting beliefs in my world, they're BS, belief systems.
yeah,
But people kind of like it. Um, the like the whole, "Oh, that's a BS or stinking thinking."
yeah,
Um, I can so relate to the weight holding you back because that absolutely that would be my thing because I am a curvier lady. Always have been. And I now look at other curvy ladies and think to myself, well, do I judge her? Do I think she's less capable of being a good coach, teacher, whatever it is, hairdresser, because she's curvy? I rarely do.
yeah,
I rarely do. It's your judgment of yourself. And it could come from, we know this, it comes from a BS, it comes from a belief system, it comes from elsewhere, it comes from society telling us that actually we can't be fit and healthy if we're my size at anything. Strangely enough, when I go to doctors and they go, so what medication are you on? Like, none. They're like, no, for your high blood pressure, I don't have high blood pressure. They're always amazed. So
yeah,
there are lots of people out there who are larger that have proved actually you can be fit and healthy and be larger. Some of us hold on to our weight for a whole variety of reasons, be it trauma or whatever. Um, I think if you were to talk to most coaches, go on ahead. Sorry, Haley, you're going to say something.
I was just going to say about the weight thing. I think for me as well, and I'm sure other people will resonate, but it's almost like I've used it as a protection.
That's
So
exactly.
the fact that I'm
That's
overweight
exactly.
makes me feel like I don't want to do things, like I don't want to stand on stage in front of people. I don't want to do public talking because I'm overweight and people are going to judge me. But in actual fact, I've been using it as an excuse, like a protection, so that I
Yeah.
don't have to do those things. But
Yeah.
then your inner critic inside, you're kind of beating yourself up for firstly being overweight in the first place, and then secondly for using it as an excuse to stop you from doing things that you know deep down you really want to go and do. So
Yeah.
it's like a complete cycle.
And it is, but it's that whole thing of for a lot of larger people, it is usually a protection, and it is
Yeah,
usually a trauma. Um, and for a vast majority, it has been a sexual trauma.
yeah,
Because if you're bigger, nobody's going to find you attractive, so they're not going to attack you. Now,
yeah,
that's not true of every person that's overweight by any stretch of the imagination. It's not even true of people who are vastly overweight but for a rather significant percentage of people. And even if it's not the sexual trauma, it is that there is a level of protection.
yeah,
And so it's this conscious mind that's going, I want to do this, but this inner child, this baby that's going, no, that's really scary. We can't do that. That makes us vulnerable. We will
yeah,
not be safe. So to be safe, we will be this size and we will protect ourselves. And that's why it's such a clash. Where you lose a wee bit and then you gain it back, and you lose a wee bit, then you gain it back. And it's, it's a lifelong, unfortunately, it's a lifelong until we can
yeah,
get that inner child to the point that it absolutely feels safe in whatever scenario, that then release the weight and release the weight really, really naturally and easily.
yeah. And I think that's the
Like it.
thing, isn't it? Is that everybody's version of trauma is different as well. So, when we think about trauma, we only think about the really big things. But actually, there's
Yeah,
loads of little experiences that people have that will impact them and effectively become bigger versions of trauma for them.
yeah,
And it's been so interesting learning about trauma, and how it does impact each individual differently, and the way we look at it is different as well. And also the behaviors we start to display because of it.
trauma,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah, it's amazing to me to just start to open up into that world and learn so much about it. It's really brought a lot of things to light for me, and things that, you see in other people and the people around you as well. Up until going through that kind of big shift myself, I had never really thought about how things that had maybe happened to my parents or grandparents could impact me as an individual as well. You know,
Generational trauma.
and yeah, and it's just amazing to kind of have the ability now to be able to look back and think, oh, I wonder if that's because of, this particular thing, or
Yeah.
it's just, it opens your eyes to so much.
Yeah. And is that really mine? Or is
Yeah,
that my parents' belief? Do I only believe that because my parents believed it? In which case, is it still appropriate for me? And it might be. It might not be absolutely appropriate for you, but it might not be. It might be time for you to drop that hot coal. Um, yeah, and it's accepting the different traumas. So we have what we call the big T trauma, and that is the big things, the car accidents and so on and so forth, deaths and things like that.
yeah,
Then you have the little T trauma, as in the things that happen repeatedly over and over and over and over, like that drip effect.
yeah,
Because if you look at the Grand Canyon, I've never been, so I don't know. I'm taking this on the word of other people, but the river's really tiny, but it's been there grinding away for so long that it's created the Grand Canyon. Little T trauma is the same. So if somebody made fun, for example, and I don't know why they would, this is purely an example, but if somebody made fun of your accent, for talk's sake, once, you probably would, given depending on the circumstances as they happen at the time, you probably could laugh it off.
yeah,
But if three or four people are doing that every single day, particularly when you're in primary school and secondary school, because you're the only child in the school that talks with that accent,
yeah,
that's going to end up causing trauma. Could end up causing trauma. And I love Russell von Kolk's The Body Keeps the Score.
yeah,
And in it, he talks about childhood trauma, which isn't even recognized as a thing as yet within the medical books. And that's such a pity. I think if we could they do talk about ACEs, but I think if they could, the adverse childhood experiences, but I think if they could get to the point where they recognize that actually those aren't experiences, those are traumas. And if we can
yeah,
clear the trauma, And then you've got the complex trauma, which is then you've got multiple of, so you could have the big trauma and you could have two or three big traumas. And so the likes of police officers, the fire service, ambulance, they can have complex trauma because they're going to these traumatic, and it's not happening to them, but they're
Yeah.
going and having to deal with the aftermath. But anyway, sorry, off on a time. You can tell I am a trauma informed coach and I love trauma and I love helping people. I do hypnotherapy for PTSD because I love helping people to be able to finally put those to bed and to rest
Yeah.
and to integrate them into their body and be able to move on with their lives without that dictating so much of their life anymore.
Yeah.
This my podcast where I'm talking to you, so I shut up now. Um, the lifelong learner. I don't think I've met a coach yet that doesn't do lifelong learning. I think that is, and it is exactly that of you get to understand that what works for me might not work for you, and therefore I need to have different tools that I can pull out and say, and even if it's not a case of I can do it, but at least I know about it, and I can send you to somebody so that we're maybe not trained in everything, but we kind
Yeah.
of know. Well, yeah. So I am trained. I'm a bit like you. You're listing all yours, and I'm going, yeah, I've done that, and done that, and done that, and done that. So I don't actually do aromatherapy anymore because I can't put with my health, I can't put the bed up and down and all that jazz. So I don't actually practice aromatherapy anymore. But at least I know it is a thing that helps, and that touch, that special thing of the touch that really helps people to
Yeah.
just relax and release stress, and so I can recommend. So yeah. And I think the other thing as well for me is that um when you're a lifelong learner, or when you're a coach and you're a lifelong learner, it's because you realize that you never get to the point where you're healed. Not really. Healing is a lifelong, because when you get to the point where you're healed enough to help, because, and as coaches, we only need to be one step ahead of the person we're helping,
Yeah.
and that's usually the best person to be helping, not trying to help people way, way back there because it's maybe too much. We're too much for them. But we're helping the next person who's helping the next person, and the next person to us is helping us. And that's the way it should be. We should be each reaching back and reaching forward to just, and that's why it'll be. So you will move forward, and as you move forward, then you will attract different clients at different stages ready to be helped. And then you get to the stage where it's not just about healing yourself anymore, it's healing others and then healing the world. So there will always be people out there that will need, and that's why the lifelong learning comes into it, because I want to know more so that I can help others in different ways. Oh, I love that. I love
Yeah.
that. And you said with your imposter syndrome when you were going to get your prize, who am I? And as a coach, my challenge would be, who are you not?
Yeah.
Why not you?
Yeah, I think it's one of those things, isn't it, where it's the same as the getting a compliment. It's, initially it's hard to take, you're not sure how to respond. And I haven't really ever won an award before. And yeah, being in the spotlight is something that's relatively new to me as well. So, I'm very proud of it. I've worked really, really hard to get there. And I've really put myself out there and massively stepped outside of my comfort zone, um, which is something that I'm learning to be okay with. I'm learning to be comfortable outside of my comfort zone, and that's something that I think I'll be learning for a really long time. But yeah, I mean, winning that award, it meant so much. And for such a long time, I had got used to kind of hiding my emotions about things. I didn't want to look weak. I don't want to cry, and all of those things that so many people go through. And yeah, it's just been a massive eye opener for me that, do you know what? It's okay to have a little cry. You've just done something that you're proud of. Or, it's okay to have a little stutter when you're doing a speech for the first time. Those type of things are starting to feel more natural for me. So, yeah, stepping outside of my comfort zone's really been one of the biggest things I could do for myself. But for so long, I didn't do that.
Yeah. And living in your stretch zone. is the thing that really, really
Yeah,
changes your life. Like, because if you live in your comfort zone and jumping out of your comfort zone to do something and then retreating back in will open your mind a bit, but
yeah.
doesn't normally change your life. But living more and more often in that stretch zone will be the thing that will change everything, which is fantastic. Um, so many, many congratulations on your award and well
Thank
done.
you.
And what you didn't say is that you're stepping out of your comfort zone today because this is the first time you've done a podcast.
It
So
is.
thank you for choosing me to be the first to interview you.
Thank
Um,
you for having me
and
here.
hopefully it'll be you're more than welcome. Hopefully this will be the first of many.
I hope
Hopefully.
so.
Um, so Hilly, we always round off with I have three wee questions that I finish the podcast with. It's entirely up to you whether you answer one, two, or three of them. It's whatever you're comfortable with. And the reason I asked the three is because when you ask me what is my favorite book, it's usually what I'm reading right now, or it's going to be, I think when I was on with Joe last week, Joe Cantle, who you and I both know from
Yeah,
Becoming 360. And I think that's how we met was through the Becoming 360 Soul Tribe Facebook page.
yeah, that's
Um,
right.
Joe, what I was saying to her last week was, it would probably, if you really put me on the spot and said you have to pick one, I think I said I would have picked Winnie the Pooh. And on reflection of that, afterwards, I was like, no, I wouldn't. It would have been Wind in the Willows if you really put me on the spot. So I can't even, even when it goes to children, I can't pick. I really don't pin me down. I don't like favorites. So that's why I give the range of three is so you have a choice of, and I'm not putting you on the spot and asking you to answer something. So the three questions are your favorite book, your favorite phrase, and or what you would tell your younger self. And it's up to you which or all of those that you answer.
Okay. Um, the favorite book one is just quite fresh in my mind. So I love to read. I have an insane amount of books. And I read last year The Best Seat in the Universe by Graham Anderson. And it is just such a beautifully written book. It kind of, I don't want to give any spoilers for anybody who's going to read it, but it's thought-provoking. It's a story about resilience and, going through life's challenges and gaining different perspectives on different things. And I found it such a transformational read. I could really relate to it. It's told in a way, it covers some very deep topics, but it's told in such a way that, it makes it accessible for anybody. And it was just such a beautiful story about embracing life's twists and turns. And yeah, it's a book that I keep recommending to anybody who will talk to me about books, basically. So yeah, it's just such a beautiful book.
Very good. Brilliant.
Mm.
And the other two questions, do you want to answer
Yeah,
them or yeah?
I'll
So your
go for
favorite
it.
phrase?
Yeah, I've got two favorite phrases. So one is growth and comfort do not coexist. That's a relatively new one for me, given the things that have been happening over the last few years. And then my most favorite one is travel far enough, you meet yourself.
Oh,
Um,
lovely.
and yeah, that one's a little bit of a mantra that I repeat to myself. I have it engraved on a piece of jewelry that I wear. And it just reminds me every day that, you know, I only need to do what I need to do for me, and that I should keep pushing until I am happy and satisfied. Just reminding me to leave other people's judgment behind.
Brilliant. Very good. And then the last one is what would you tell your younger self?
That you don't have to have it all figured out all the time. And that, you don't have to have everything laid out, a plan for everything, and that it is absolutely fine to work outside of your comfort zone.
Very good. Love that. Hilly, thank you so much. As always, you will send me any links or whatever so that people, if there's somebody out there. So you're coaching. what sort of coaching do you do now? Is it only people who have IT issues? Or because I
No.
could really do with you around my website. But what is the sort of coaching that you do?
So it's known as transformational coaching, and it's really just working with each individual as a whole person. So not just future focused, but also dealing with some of the issues that have happened in the past that have led to those limiting beliefs or BS, as you referred to it. And yeah, just really working. Most of my clients really are women in business, purely because of the background that I have. But I'm open to working with anybody. I've worked with various different people, both sexes in different environments. So yeah, my main message is just that I really want to help people move forward and feel supported.
Lovely.
And I wish I'd had that sooner. So if I can help anybody with that, that's really what I'm about.
Lovely. Brilliant. Thank you so much for your time, Haley, and for joining us and being vulnerable and living in your stretch zone, um, and not letting your BS hold you back.
Thank you
Thank
for
you, Haley.
guiding me through it.
You're more than welcome.